Welcome to Escape Artist, the podcast where we celebrate the bold souls who have dared to break free from the confines of the corporate 9-to-5 grind to pursue their passions and create a life of personal and financial freedom. Each week, we'll uncover the stories of extraordinary individuals who have embarked on their own entrepreneurial adventures. Our guests will share their personal tales of liberation, resilience, and triumph. Together, we'll explore the pivotal moments, the challenges, and the lessons learned along the way. So join me as we embark on a journey of discovery, courage, and boundless potential. Let's design the life you've always dreamed of, where the only boss is you. Here's your host, Laura Demetrius.
Today on this episode, I have my dear friend, Lisa Zelenak, who is super inspiring. She was once afraid to even ask people for money, and it was her life coaching and master's in counseling that led her to be known by her peers as the sales queen. However, after taking 5,000 plus sales calls and closing multiple seven figures in one-on-one and one-to-many sales, Lisa now believes it's not sales tactics, but transformation that is the secret to conversion. She's a 3-time best-selling author, and it includes the books Find Your Thing and Start Your Thing. She runs both an online accelerator and in-person incubator called Startup Miami, which is super cool, where she helps high-ticket entrepreneurs and sales reps with transformational sales. So she talks a ton about transformation. You guys are going to love this interview. Here it is with Lisa Zelenak. What's happening, friends? I've got my good friend, Lisa Zelenak, with me today. I've known Lisa for, several years now, which seems crazy. It feels like we just met yesterday. We actually used to work together, and she was in sales. I was not in sales because I am definitely not a salesperson, but Lisa knows all about it, and she teaches people about it. She's a coach, and she has a lot of cool stories to tell about escaping her 9-to-5 and starting her own thing. So welcome to the show, Lisa. I'm so excited to have you.
Yes, my fellow Michigan friend, Laura. Anything
That's
you do,
right.
I love.
Right. Awesome. So let's just get started by you giving a little bit of background in how you got started in business. And even before that, like what you didn't think you'd be getting into and how that kind of led into what you're doing now.
Okay, cool. Well, it's fun because there's so many stories that no matter what I tell, they're all parallel. And I love that we talk about leaving the 9-to-5 because I can tell you the moment when I left my 9-to-5. But I think the bigger story is honestly, first right out of college, I started a nonprofit. And the reason this matters is I remember the moment where I'm like, I'm going to impact the world. I'm going to change the world. But it wasn't hard. It's nonprofit, right? You don't even have to make money to have a nonprofit. It can't be that hard. You don't need sales. But I do remember that moment of courage that changed my life in college, having to be like, hey, Dad. I mean, that was to me the biggest fear. Hey, Dad, I'm going to throw my life away. Or I'm sorry, what you think is throwing my life away and start this nonprofit. I know you thought I was going to go, get my master's and work for this company and, be a CEO here. I'm just going to go start a nonprofit. So I tell that story a lot about having to face my dad and the fear. And I was so awkward, Laura, that it makes me cringe just thinking about how uncomfortable it was to tell my dad. I feel like I didn't even tell friends for a while, but that was my first moment of courage, that even though that's just a story of me starting a nonprofit, the moment of courage is the transferable thing, that if we do talk about when I left my 9-to-5, just having the courage to step out and do what really mattered to me, that's the consistent thing in my life.
Yeah. And isn't it so funny that the most courageous things, the most courageous moments in life, you typically don't tell a whole lot of people because there's still that fear of failure of I don't need the whole world to know yet. They can know if it's successful, which is funny because I've talked about this with other guests too. I think it's this recurring theme of having courage is also the opposite end of that is fear of failure. And so many people don't tell people what they're going to do with that fear. But what they don't realize is part of failing is part of the process. So if things don't work out, or not even just failing at it, but not necessarily pursuing or the end game being exactly what you thought it was going to be when you started, you feel oh, well, things kind of pivoted. It feels weird. I don't want to talk about it. But that's part of the process. People are inspired by that, you doing the thing.
Yeah, for sure. Which I mean, maybe I'll talk about this, maybe we won't, but the reason I originally got, like, when I did leave my 9 to 5, one of my first like businesses was basically getting people to start their business. Mm-hmm. And what I found, the reason I like accidentally fell into like starting up this startup, at the time it was like teaching people how to, in 7 days, run a challenge, launch their business, whatever. But I found that very thing. Like, I would see my friends, they were trying to build the perfect website in secret. They were trying to come up with the perfect brand statement, they were spending 8 months or more, like some people years. I mean, you and I, even in our industry, when we're helping people write their book, they're like building their brand in secrecy, like you're saying.
Yes.
Versus like, hello, if you want to build a business, leave your 9 to 5. You got to help people. So actually talk to the people, help the people. Mm-hmm. Versus it's just like we just play business in secret versus, instead of like, go talk to people, help them do the thing instead of building a website for 8 months,
Yeah. So what was the catalyst for you? Like when you decided like, I want to quit this, there's something more for me. Like, what was that moment like for you?
Well, when I tell about the story, I usually tell it like a reluctant hero. I don't know if you know the hero's journey. I teach people a lot about the hero's journey, but it was a reluctant hero. Like, I didn't intend to start this massive business. Actually, at the time, I had just scaled like sales, so to speak, through the company we used to work at. Like in 2 months, I had this incredible feat where I led the sales team to, we're at like $350,000 months and went to like $750,000. Like, it was a really big accomplishment. I'm like, wow, I think I kind of found my niche, scaling sales. Yeah. But for whatever reason, I just decided I was going to leave the company. So I didn't like create this runway, this plan, which I think sometimes people do in a 9 to 5. It's just like, okay, yep, my time here is done. And I'm going to take 2 days to rest. And then I just feel inspired right now. I'm like, 2 days to rest, that's enough rest. It was actually just like being inspired. I'm like, let me just go talk to people. And I think the beautiful thing about not prepping and not like feeling like I needed to leave, it was more what I wanted to pursue at the time, just got me out there. And that story was more like, let me just talk to people. I remember setting myself a goal of like, okay, I'm going to just launch something next week. I have nothing to lose. Let me just talk to people. At the time, I was living in an entrepreneur house in LA, and I remember telling my roommates, like, okay, here's how I'm going to win. It's not about starting a business. I'm just going to talk to people. I'm going to set a goal to talk to 15 people a day for 5 days and just listen. Like, just listen. And of course, my background, my master's is in counseling. So at this point, I did know how to listen and just hear what people might want. But like, I just really was like hearing them, and I got so passionate about what they wanted to start. And I was just in Austin last week, and a girl was asking me like, well, how do you start? I'm like, just go listen. Like, I don't know. I accidentally fell into business. Every single time I wanted to start a business, which I can tell you 4 like key times when I like launched new things, literally all I did was just go like listen and be like, cool. And if I launch this, would you want this? And they said, yeah. So listen, help people. That's all I did.
Wow. So you just started serving people based on what their needs were.
Yeah, I know. It's such a crazy concept, right?
Like, and I feel like I talk about this quite a bit too, is like when people are like, oh, like what is like people first approach to marketing? Because I always say like, I'm people first. It's like your skills will sustain you in business, but they're not actually what starts your business or what like gets you to the position that you're in. It's people, it's network, it's listening, it's those relationships. And by building them, like you'll make the right connections to start something. This is how the podcast started, right? It's a network of really great relationships with really great people who are running high profile businesses or are just getting started. And the cool thing about it is like, it's just getting like your foot in the door and talking to people. But it's your skills that will carry you. But it's not what gets it started. It's literally talking to people. So I love that like that was your start for starting your business, is like going out there and setting that goal of like having X amount of conversations per day in a week and like seeing where that gets you. And all you had to do was listen to people's needs in an industry and say like, I can deliver on that. It's amazing.
And that's what it sounds like you did too. It was just like so quickly you started this. This podcast is all the stuff you're doing. I was actually just on a call teaching on the concept, it's not about more followers, but be someone worth following. And one of the things I was going into, because like content is the world today. Like there's no content the way we show up in the world. But kind of what I was like preaching almost is like, first of all, everything we do is content. We think it's like, okay, I'm about ready to start content. It's like, no, you're already sharing content. Like even this isn't a new thing that you're talking about. You've been passionate about this, like this realm of doing what you love, escaping your 9 to 5. Like it's not new. So just a side note, like a new offer, a new business, new content, it's not new. Like either you're standing for it or you're not. Yeah. And people are already following you or they're not. So whether you're doing something official or not, it doesn't matter. We're already standing for it. And that's where like people will probably buy your offer if it aligns with what you've been offering unintentionally. So, I mean,
exactly.
You're doing this.
And that's such a good point, because I believe there are probably a ton of people out there who haven't actually taken the leap of like starting their own business or, leaving their 9 to 5 or just like starting to hustle on the side because they're constantly think about that same issue of like, well, do I need to reinvent the wheel? And the answer is always going to be no. Like somebody out there is probably already doing exactly what you're doing, but they need your unique voice, your unique way of doing it. And you will have a following. You will have people that want to buy things from you. Nobody's going out there and starting from absolute ground zero. Like you can go out there with the things that you have and the knowledge that you do and still be doing what other people are doing, but doing it in your own way, which is really powerful.
Yeah, for sure. And then you got me thinking around like, everything's like AI now. Everything's AI. Well, the power, like there's so much people, the way to stand out is to actually, like you said, it's not about having the funnel. You don't have to start at ground zero. But what I would say was like actually believing something, like actually standing for something, like your unique way of standing for the world is going to transfer. So yes, all the things.
And you have such a unique way of how you talk to people and how you motivate them. Like when I think of like people that have zest for life, like I picture you, like you have such a way of talking to people and influencing and being such a leader. So talk to me a little bit about like what you do as a coach.
Ooh, as a coach. It's funny because like when I think about what I want to be best in the world at, like even now, a lot of the work I do, like my biggest business, my biggest like revenue generating business is actually scaling companies. So I don't know if you know this, maybe we talked about this, but I used to be just strictly sales, but I, again, accidentally realized, that people, it wasn't like sales that they were struggling with. It was more like a leadership issue. They didn't have systems. Like, shout out to the past founder you and I worked with, had amazing systems, amazing like scaling up, traction, these greater systems. So anyway, my current business is more like facilitating. So I'll go in person with CEOs and their leadership team every quarter and scaling up traction, call it what you want, but it's really aligning the team. Like the number one thing before the sales tactics and strategies and why isn't my team selling is like, well, first, are you leading them? Are they clear on their goals? So that's a lot of like what I do. And like really it's just I'm like, all I need to do is be a world-class facilitator. Like that's what I do. It's not what I sell, but that's like the thing that I do. My joke is I get 2 compliments like a lot. Either Lisa, you're the best facilitator and you have really good legs. Those are like my...
Okay, well, I want to get into that too, because you do have great legs. You are super fit and strong. And I remember going through this transitional phase I've been in and seeing suddenly like a bunch of your posts pop up on social media. And I was like, oh, I miss Lisa. Like we have to connect. And we did recently, which was great. But I'm looking at all of the things that you're doing and how you're absolutely crushing it in business. And then I see how much you're crushing it in your personal life. And like when people are like, oh, I don't know how people do it when, they're running such a successful business. Like you are the epitome of like crushing it in all aspects of life. I go on Facebook to see that you are basically a world champion athlete. So like, I need to know how this whole thing started.
Another thing, it's like, that one time I accidentally became an elite athlete.
You are a reluctant athlete as well.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, like how do you place all these things? And especially like in the content world and the startup world, everyone's like, what's your thing? What's my thing? Like, what's my one thing? Mm-hmm. First of all, like I think it is about a thing, but this is why it matters like more than anything. Like, and I do have a book called Find Your Thing. The punchline is it's not about a thing. It's actually like, where are you transforming lives? Like, what are you leading people towards? What's your mission? What are you creating? Mm-hmm. And it's like being a professional athlete or whatever you want to call it. Like literally, I think it's called a world championship athlete. It's hilarious to me. But it's because it came as an accident or an aftermath of how I train. Like, I believe that like anything's an opportunity for like how I show up in the world. So yeah, it matters if I do a 5-minute cold plunge in the morning for me to push myself. or like it matters that I'm doing like a harder workout. And if the result of that, I almost got tripped up too, like, oh no, like, do I need to win these competitions? It's like, just how I show up, I know matters how I'll show up in the company. How you show up one place is how you show up in another place. Like, if I'm not pushing myself or like calling myself to something higher, when I'm with the CEOs and in the leadership team, it's going to be inauthentic to be like, you know, why aren't you stepping into the gap? Like, what's holding you back if I'm not stepping into my own gap? So
I love that so much. And what's funny about that is like, it's super relatable to what I've been going through, because again, in this transitional period that I've been on and like launching a business and doing this podcast and all of these things, it's about the trajectory. It's like, what do you want to do with these things? And what are the habits that are going to help you get there? Some people know this, some people don't. I've been training for the sprint triathlon, which is like, if anyone knows me or has any history of knowledge of me, it's like, that's something that like I would have never done before. And it's not even trying to be the fastest or like the best swimmer, the best runner, the best biker. It's none of those things. It's the training puts me on the trajectory of like creating really healthy habits that get me busting my ass because I love the way it makes me feel, which is the same thing that I apply to business, right? It's like, I'm not trying to win this triathlon. In fact, they might be like waiting to tear down when I cross that finish line. I do not give a damn. The whole point is like, I'm going to cross that finish line and I'm going to be like, at the end of the day, I just did a triathlon. It's about like the doing it for me. And again, it's like the training that leads up to it is exactly what helps me set these goals, which is everything. Like it is so cool that like working so hard at something for yourself personally, how you can make that apply to so many other things in life that create success, which is exactly the type of person that you are. Like you apply all of those things to your life and you've always been successful because like you are relentless in your pursuit to being successful. In all aspects. I mean, you literally are a world champion athlete now because of that. And it's just really inspiring how much you apply all of yourself to something.
That's so great. Thanks, Laura. Yeah. And like, it's funny because, I mean, there's like always a calling to be greater, but even in the small things, like yesterday I was at a friend's birthday and it was paint. Like we're on the beach in Miami and we're painting and that's the fun activity, right? Well, I'm sitting there like, oh, cannot paint. Like I will write a word. I'm not going to paint a picture. Like that's too much pressure. And my friend was like, hey, remember, do things you're not good at. And I'm like, oh yeah. So I don't have to paint flowers, but I get to paint a flower because I'm not good at painting. Like it's the little things. Do I need to stretch myself in every opportunity? No, but I think it's cool. Like when I can see how me painting flowers on a beach does impact the way I'm going to show up in business today, you know, when facilitating a coaching call or whatever it is, it's cool. Like to me, that's alignment. And that's what I was speaking to about you is you're aligned, Laura. Like people are in, whether they're following the podcast, the 9 to 5, but either way, people are following you because it's like how you're showing up. It's congruent. You're running the brand, even if they're tearing it down and you didn't finish, you know? It's
Hello, my fellow digital entrepreneurs. It's Laura here, and I'm absolutely thrilled to introduce you to something truly transformative. Picture this. You're armed with the most cutting-edge digital marketing strategies, equipped with high-income skills, and empowered to establish and run a thriving online business in just a matter of days. That's where Digital Wealth Academy comes into play. This program isn't just your typical online course. It's a comprehensive journey meticulously crafted to guide you from where you are to where you dream of being. With Digital Wealth Academy, you'll learn everything from creating your own digital products to how to launch your business strategically. You can dive into funnel building, branding, email marketing, and how to build trust with your audience. What's even better is you'll gain exclusive access to the master resale rights to the course. So even if you don't have your own product yet, you can sell the course yourself to get your business started. Imagine rebranding and sharing this invaluable knowledge as your own while reaping the rewards time and time again. Head to www.sidehustlelaura.com/DWA or click the link in the show notes to step into the world of digital entrepreneurship today. Remember, your journey to success begins now. Keep believing and keep breaking free. And you also mentioned in The Gap, and I don't know if like that was an analogy or like you talking about The Gap and the Gain, which I love that book myself. It is so important that you like feel the gap and you like relay that message to other people. And like this, like I'm in the thick of it too. Like launching a business is not easy. It is a practice. Just like painting is a practice, yoga is a practice. No one shows up to something and says like, this is yoga perfect. No, everything is a practice. You're working at it business is the same way. And like, I think it's important too to be vulnerable in the things that you're doing and showcasing and documenting that journey, which is what I'm trying to do more of. Like I did like these daily vlogs for a little while too when I first was let go from my job, because I do think it's important that people see like, yeah, like there are some times that are like really sucky and really hard, but also like this is really freeing. This is really liberating. There's so many other things I could do. So like, let's be inspired and let's like, I'm going to show you guys what this is like for me. And it's been really fun.
Yeah, I think I do know the vlog. That's when at first I was like, oh, what are you up to? I think that there's like the documenting, like you said, just being real. And two things that connects back to for me. Like I know we both have followed Russell Brunson in the past, or any of these like, you know, whoever's I think Alex Hormozi is like the guy right now everyone's following.
Yeah.
Like we follow their path because it worked, but especially now that anyone can enter the market, I think like we actually here's what I would say, how I would say it. Like we don't just buy what they're offering, we buy their belief. Like it's actually their story that's inspiring us, because it's like, yeah, the funnel, but it's actually like Russell's giving me the story that I can do it too. Or like, it's like Laura is just so real that it's like, okay, I can just show up real. And like, we're always transferring a value of some sort. And I know that that's the thing I get to hold myself to, or else I can't stand here. Like, so I'm standing literally in an incubator right now that I started. It's like, all I can think of, by the way, Laura, is this cord. I'm like, oh my God, this is like, it's not, anyone else can relate to that. Like all we can see is the thing that's missing or we don't have, or like, oh, I just need this perfect thing. And the story even behind the space I'm standing in is all about like starting before you're ready, you know, just going out and starting. Otherwise, again, I can't call people to the value of like, go help people if I'm making it about something else. So
totally.
I don't even know where I'm going with this, just the idea of like, it's always a value that we're standing in. And that's, it calls me forth every day to be like, yeah, I'm making it about the wrong thing again. I'm making it about like me and what I don't have versus just like, get out there and help some people.
I love that. It's a constant reminder of like, show up imperfectly. Because if you're not going to do it, like you're going to be waiting and you're going to be dragging your feet, and then you're not going to be showing up at all. So just do it. Show up imperfectly, which I love. And I know you touched on a little bit about your book, because when we worked together, obviously a lot of what we did was about, you know, writing, marketing, publishing your first books. And it was an amazing business to work in together. And I was inspired by you. We both wrote books, which is awesome. But your first one was Find Your Thing. And I thought that was really cool. And you inspired so many people, probably like younger people, like millennial, Gen Z age people.
Yeah.
What would you say your thing is?
Oh, so good. It's funny because even still, I don't know about you, you inspired me back then with your blog book. I remember reading it all, by the way. I'm like, I gotta start a blog.
That's so nice.
What is my thing? Well, definitely like the how. So again, most people make it about a what or a thing. I would say transformation. Like now, even sales, people, this is where even I catch myself now. Like now I'm like, okay, former sales queen. Like, oh, sales. Because what I realize as I say sales, I'm making it about sales. I think transformation is the best conversion. Yeah. That's actually like my thing, my mission. But it's not about the what. Like even the mission itself, I think we worry so much about putting words to it. Like it used to be called Find Your Thing. Then I called it Brilliance. I'm like, that's my thing, is brilliance. Either way, I was always about a mission. But I'm like, you know what? I can say the mission, the thing in 100 different ways, but it's about the how. Like where am I leading people basically? So for me, it's like, I feel led to businesses, like to impact businesses, but specifically like transformation and making sure, again, people can be in any freaking business they want. And I think we forget, a lot of the people that probably listen to your podcast too, they're impact people. They're not just doing like the reselling on eBay, you know, or like the insurance. People can start any business. Yeah. So by default, we are impact entrepreneurs. We are people that want to make a difference. Because if you wanted just any business, you would do probably like the fastest business. And it's not really, the fastest way to, money is not really in our space, I would say. There's other ways.
Yeah.
So point is for me, it's like that really like proving my belief, which is transformation, like helping people is the best way for conversion. So now I speak about transformational sales, versus just like sales.
I love that. And what I love about you explaining that is like you yourself went through plenty of transformation in discovering that was kind of your like business model, what you do, what you love most. in your business, is like helping people with transformation. And throughout that process, you were transforming as well, realizing that this is actually what you love.
Yeah. And
which
I think
says a lot.
well, I think that's the cool thing about like a thing, right? Or purpose. Like even when I was young, it was like a lot of people were like, what's my purpose? Like it was this outside thing that we had to find or something. Like, what's my thing?
It's really hard. It puts a lot of pressure. It's like, I remember thinking like the first time I like created like one of the mini courses, and it was like finding your purpose. It was like an action plan for like starting or writing your book. And it was like, what's your purpose? And I'm building out this course and I'm like having an absolute crisis because I'm like, how can I be putting this together when I'm not even totally sure what mine is?
Yes. Which, okay, first of all, I remember those action plans. I ate those up. I think we sold them for like $7. I'm like, this is like a $7,000 value, people. So funny. Yes. But again, like I think a lot of our mission, our thing comes back to our story, like our actual story. So a mentor of mine wrote a book called Story of Self, which it goes back to the hero's journey. And we all have like a story. And the punchline is, it's not even like, this is why I don't emphasize anymore about like purpose, mission, your thing, even your transformational value. Forget the wording, but like just feel it, because it comes back to like your original story, our original childhood story, whatever we stand for. Without even knowing you, Laura, like I feel like yours is just like doing the dang thing, and having fun and color and life and whatever it is, but that's just like who you are. It's like how you stand. Yeah. So I think it's less about like an actual thing and more about just like, it's our story. Like we can't hide from it. We don't have to find it. It's just who we are. Because even myself early on, I never meant to do sales. Like my master's was in counseling. And I just wanted to help people. Like my story always has been about helping people, but even now I have new languaging for it. So I think the mission doesn't change as we get better languaging or we get more convicted of how to say it.
That's really powerful. And I imagine people listening, because like, just as you're saying it, it's like not necessarily like doing the thing or being the best at the thing, but just like going for it. What piece of advice would you give to someone who's been maybe like kind of teeter-tottering on is it time for me to leave? I'm not doing what I love. Like, what should I do? Like, what kind of advice would you give them? Because like that felt really powerful, but I know it can feel scary too if you're like, I don't even really know if I've found my thing yet.
Oh, okay. That's really good. So it reminds me of a conversation I just had like an hour ago and my original conversation with my dad. So which relates to Find Your Thing. So one of the cool things about the actual book, Find Your Thing, is one of the fastest ways I found is actually diving into fear, because it's always like, what are you passionate about? That's great. But actually something just way easier for us to access sometimes is fear. Mm-hmm. So I was just talking to a guy named Dave who's like into his 9 to 5, by the way. And he already has sold $1 million business. And yet like he's in this space of he's like, yeah, like, I don't know, essentially imposter syndrome. Hello, we all have that.
Yep.
But what he's telling me about his fear. And so what I asked or like evoked from him is like, well, tell me more about what, like right now it sucks. And his whole thing was like, I just feel like I can be doing more. And I felt it in him. So the punchline to Find Your Thing, or for anyone who's in this space of like, is it the time? Should I leave? Know that your fear is a gift and actually come back to what's really frustrating about you in this moment. Because maybe that's the same thing. You could be doing more. And then use that fear to like see the fear in others. When you can shift from the fear, first of all, don't jump into business because of a fear. Like you've got to shift to the value. So like, oh, I don't feel enough. Okay. Hello, beautiful gift. See in the world right now who doesn't feel enough and go stand for them. Make sure they feel that way. Mm-hmm. That is reason to get in business. If not, don't get in business because you have a fear. Like, and the fastest way I found to get out of fear, it's the same way to get out of a sales rut. It's the same thing for me if I'm not unmotivated. It's like, I feel like this. Imagine how all these other people who don't even have the EQ.
Which makes you relatable because you can share in that. Like, I've been there. I was there. I can still be there. I know how that feels. Yeah, it's really powerful.
And then you're standing for something, and then it's like, that's probably the space to start the business. Just go find the people who have the fear that you have. Because even the offering, I'm like, everyone's like, what's my offering? What's my niche? I think I feel like a robot sometimes. We get caught in these perfect questions. It's like, you're only ever offering like what you're offering. Like, what are you standing for? Stand for people. That's what you're offering. And that's it. It's way easier.
I like that too, because it's not one of those like buzzwords that we hear so often in like the entrepreneur world of like, you know, purpose and niche and your calling and all that. But just to say what do you stand for is a lot more approachable and makes a lot more sense to people. I like that.
Yeah, it's human. It's human too, which I think is good for this world. I used to like joke. First of all, I'm like, I'll make fun of people that are like crushing it. You know, it's easier to make fun of the people that are crushing it. Like I can poke fun at Brenton all day, but like, come on, he's crushing it. But I know one of the things I used to say, someone posted the other day, like, what's a marketing term that drives you insane? I'm like, funnel. Because, which it just, again, it gives me something to like access, but funnel is literally made for inanimate objects, like for flour, like it's an inanimate, and we're talking about people. So I think when we come back to like, oh yeah, we're talking about people, you know, like standing for people. But anyway, Russell, you know, I can make fun of you today, but
I love that. Okay, real quick, before we do wrap, I want to talk about that sign that's behind you and what you're doing with Startup Miami.
So good. Yeah, Startup Miami. Love it.
Cute.
Also, not even our logo. We just were like, let's just put a logo. And I'm like, crap, we need to revisit. Like, but again, just start the dang thing.
Yep.
So, well, Startup Miami is cool in the sense that it's one of those things, like, I don't know if you've ever felt like you had a vision for a really long time, but like people talk about the 10-year overnight success type of thing. Like this isn't something new. It's like an idea that I had. Like I always felt like led to spaces. Like when I walk into spaces, I'm inspired or uninspired. And so I've always wanted to like start a space, create a space where people could do workshops, or I just always envisioned myself. Like facilitation is a skill set that I'm really good at, like reading people. So naturally I wanted to start something like that. So it just came, like crazy story if we want to talk about like the investment and like negotiating for this building, like just really cool stuff. But that's just, man, it's just all about being convicted and people, like sometimes I love and hate that I just look like this granny. You can't tell on Zoom, but I'm like 5'4". I'm kind of scrawny. Like, yeah, my legs are good, but like people just look at me sometimes. They're like, oh, okay. Like, yeah, for sure. You're going to do whatever.
Girl, you're scrappy.
Scrappy, right? But it's I'm sure you, maybe not, hopefully not, but it's fun sometimes when they do doubt you. But yeah, I just have this.
There is nothing in this world that makes me feel more of a sense of pride than when I know that I get to prove somebody wrong. So eat that up.
So it is so good. It's like it's a good thing that could be a potentially bad thing. So wait up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just had a vision for it. And again, like, it was just like, hey, I'm not ready, but luckily I have a really good mentor, and same thing. I want to be the person who waits 8 months to make my perfect website. And so I know at the time I was like, well, I'm not ready. I wish you could see, you can't see with this, like there's like a hole in the wall, whatever. You could see the ceiling. It looked like you have to have vision. Talk about like being like you got to see it when no one else sees it and just be convicted, and that's enough. And sometimes it's drowning out voices because everyone thinks they know best. But I think the punchline was my mentor was like really good. He's like, okay, stop making it about what you don't have. You want this perfect paint here, and you want this studio equipment, and you want, this podcast thing. You have a table and chairs, and that's it. He's like, go sit in this space that you want to get. You have a table and chairs. What do you need to impact people? I'm like, okay, yeah, that's it. So simple. I'm like, well, I would want a whiteboard. It's like, okay, then get a whiteboard. What else would you want? So like I have it's an incubator space. It's designed to just help people. The intention was I didn't want to have to sell like a high ticket offer to help startup people. I just wanted to, because it's a lot of mindset. Like it's a lot to start something sometimes. So in Miami, I'm like, let me just create a space that I can more give back. Like this is like my retirement project, So it has a lot of cool things. Like there's a 360 whiteboard room because that's what I said we need. We need a whiteboard. I'm like, what? People just need to go record a video and put it out there. So that's why we have a podcast and video studio. There's a video studio where you can see all the Zoom faces. So anyway, coming back to like the literal mission was just what I started with. It's called Startup Miami just because it's like, go back to why you started. Whether you have a $10 million business or you're just starting, either way, I think the answer is the same for all of us. even for me who like, I'm like, oh, I have to make a PowerPoint today. I don't know what to say. Come back to why I started and I'll always know where to go.
Oh, what a great influence. And I love that it's a physical space, because when you talk about connecting with people, like when I was in a co-working space, it was so great. I was so inspired by just being around other people having conversations, and it made such a difference for me. So I love that you have something like that, and people who are also being inspired by you and get to go to a place where they are getting the advice and the business consulting that they need to grow their businesses. I think that's really great.
Yeah. Thanks,
So
Laura.
what do you see in the future?
Ooh, for anything, for a start at Miami Pride.
For you.
So what is now one building, I see like everything being floors and incubators. So like even this girl came to me yesterday, she's like, just so you know, everything that's a room right now, picture floor. She's like, your whiteboard room, pictured a whole like floor in a new building whiteboard room. I really just see like just launching as many businesses as possible. But I think changing the way business is done is like my greater thing now, bringing people back to transformation.
Yes.
And I mean, I'm stepping into spaces I never wanted to. Like content is a thing that I get to step into or help people step into, because that is the world we play in. AI, it's part of what I'm doing because that's the world like that we play in now. So every day I'm like, I don't know, what do the people need, you know? That's what we're doing. So I'm excited to see, like, I just hope that no matter what the trajectory for me, and I know it will be, is just listen and help people based on what I hear they need.
And you do. You help a lot of people. And I love that. I love what you do. I love how inspiring you are. And I think a lot of people are going to be helped just by listening to your story. So thank you for sharing with it today and sharing with everyone and being on. One last thing, where can people go to learn more about you, Lisa?
Woo! Well, you can follow us at Startup Miami. And it's so new, I don't even know the Instagram handle. So you can just DM me or connect with me on
That is what we call showing up imperfectly. If you're like, I don't know, it's out there though.
I would love to tell you, if you can find us, that you'll be a win. But Lisa.Zelenak, Zelenak. And yeah, just if you want to, play impact, just message me. Let's be connected. Let's do it.
Awesome. Thanks again, Lisa. It was awesome talking to you, and we'll chat soon.
Bye.
Bye.